Introduction to my 1995 small farm. Chen Ling returned to 1995 with a piece of immortal family fortune. Faced with countless opportunities to develop and become successful, Chen Ling did not want to work hard. Isn't it fragrant to plant crops and hunt in the hands of a blessed land? What? Are you talking about entrepreneurship? Sorry, I have already won. Kind reminder. The first 3 chapters are a bit rough, mainly for laying the groundwork. The 5th chapter improves, and the latter focuses on farming and daily life. Chapter 1. 95 years. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. On the 6th day of February in 1995, there was a startled insect. In the evening, the afterglow of the sunset gradually faded, and hard-working women began to light a fire and cook. Wisps of cooking smoke rise from the towering chimneys, accompanied by sunset, and distant mountains, rendering this small village located in the mountains like an oil painting, so beautiful that it is intoxicating. Chen Ling walked barefoot on the dam of the reservoir, his eyes constantly scanning the surrounding scenery. This was his 3rd day crossing here, and he had almost wandered around the village. His footprints are almost everywhere in the mountains, forests, reservoirs, and wheat fields. Despite feeling helpless, I have deeply accepted the fact that I traveled back to 1995. Unfortunately, after accumulating wealth for half a lifetime, there is nothing left now. Chen Ling let out a melancholy sigh and squatted by the pond not far from the dam, cleaning the mud on his feet. It has just entered February, and after the sun sets, the temperature in the mountains drops sharply, and the pool water is very cold. Chen Ling hurriedly washed it and couldn't bear the cold. I grabbed some dry grass and wiped my feet on the side, and put on clean cotton shoes to feel more comfortable. Wearing his shoes and taking advantage of the dim yellow sky, Chen Ling could see his slender and upright reflection on the surface of the pond. His handsome appearance, healthy wheat-colored skin, and although not prominent, his very symmetrical and powerful muscles all indicated that he was a vibrant young man. Although we share the same name and surname, and our appearance is also 9% similar, I know you're not me. Chen Ling stared at the reflection in the pool water and whispered to himself. Because at this time in his previous life, he was in his 3rd year of college and had been struggling in society for more than 10 years after graduation, without ever getting married. And now Chen Ling, not to mention college, hasn't even finished high school. At the age of 23, she already has a wife who has been married for 2 years. These piles and pieces don't even match the numbers. Moreover, this mountain, this water, and this village are not my familiar hometown. So, Chen Ling has been pondering this matter for the past 2 days, and he knows that this is not a rebirth. But when it comes to crossing, this is not a general sense of crossing. Most likely, this should be crossing into another self in a parallel world. However, Chen Ling in this parallel world not only has a completely opposite life trajectory to himself, but also has 2 extremes in personality. He is lazy and has no ambition, so he doesn't talk about it. After getting married, he doesn't look much like a man. The first thing I do every day when I open my eyes is to take care of my wife and ask for money, and then ride a Phoenix brand crossbeam bike to the billiards hall and street computer room in the county town for a leisurely ride. Of course, sometimes his wife can't afford it, and then this jerk has a nose, not an eye, deliberately picking faults, getting angry, and hitting people. Although his wife is virtuous and beautiful, with a first-class appearance and physique, this bastard still has to take a heavy beating. A while ago, there was a temple fair in the county town, and this guy got drunk somewhere. He came back at night and got angry, hitting his wife all the time. No wonder he didn't prepare food for him. In fact, it's not the fault that he didn't prepare food for him. It's obvious that he didn't get money from his wife during the temple fair in the county town. He came back tonight to find an excuse to vent his anger. It can be said that the traits that Chen Ling looked down upon the most in his past life were all present in himself in this parallel world. This gives him a sense of dramatic absurdity. More importantly, he doesn't know how to deal with that charming little daughter. In law now. The sky turns black. Chen Ling returned to the village and also met many villagers from the same village on the way. Even if we had a meeting, there were not many people willing to greet him. Because lazy people are often looked down upon in rural areas. Besides, Chen Ling, this lazy guy, has already gained a reputation. Who wouldn't know if he's from all over the place? After dropping out of high school, this guy also went out to work with others. I have worked as a security guard, waiter, and porter before, and none of them have worked for a long time. It's because he's too lazy to endure hardship. Every time I work, I pick and choose. I don't want to do heavy and tiring work, and I don't want to work night shifts. I often slack off and keep doing this. Which boss uses him? At first, his fellow villagers spoke up for him, but he refused to listen several times and even caused several people to lose their jobs. Later, no one wanted to talk to him anymore. So, after spending less than 2 months outside, I didn't do anything wrong and just returned to the village feeling disheartened. He is the only seedling in the family, and when his mother was lost at the age of 10, he relied on his father for survival. The old man felt sorry for him and couldn't bear to hit or scold him. Apart from sighing, he refused to say even a few words. This made him even worse, and his reputation became increasingly bad. Originally, such a person would not be able to find a wife in the countryside. However, his father is a postal worker in the county. Once, while delivering letters to a village in the deep mountains, he saved a medicinal gatherer. Due to the nature of the job, I have to run deep into the mountains several times every 6 months. As the friendship deepened, the herb picker wanted to marry his daughter in return for his life-saving kindness. At that time, Chen Ling's father was worried about his son's marriage, and upon hearing this, he felt a sudden sense of joy. There was no reason not to agree. In fact, this village is even more remote than the Chenwang village where Chen Ling is located. In the deeper mountains, I don't know what Chen Ling's virtues are. Otherwise, even repaying kindness may require careful consideration. It's also this bastard's good luck. With such an old man, why not designate him as a bachelor? Chen Ling walked on the path paved with bluestone slabs, and couldn't help but think of his father in his heart. Whether in their past lives or here, the two fathers have devoted everything to their sons. Unfortunately, my life was not very good, and I didn't enjoy a few days of happiness before passing away early. It is truly regrettable. When it was completely dark, Chen Ling returned to his current home, a simple farmyard. There are pressure wells, grape racks, pear trees, peach trees, chicken houses in the yard at this moment. It was already dark. Chen Ling found the light rope, turned on the electric light, and prepared to make some dinner. I left in the morning and wandered outside for a whole day. I didn't even have lunch, and now I am already hungry. Just as I was about to prepare food, the thick cloth curtain hanging at the door was lifted. A slender young woman came in with a fried dough twists braid and a long-handle bamboo basket on her arm. Chen Ling glanced and saw carbon blocks in the bamboo basket. It's early February now, and the night temperature is still relatively low. There is still an iron stove burning in the room for heating, otherwise it would be too cold to sleep at night. So every day when cooking dinner, Wang Susu would take advantage of the time to pick up vegetables from the backyard cellar and put a basket of new carbon in it for use at night. This process needs to be repeated every day. Just as soon as she walked in today, she saw Chen Ling standing in the center of the room, his eyes fixed on her. The two of them looked at each other, and Chen Lingming saw a flash of fear in Wang Susu's eyes. She trembled, her bamboo basket fell to the ground with a clatter, and charcoal rolled all over the ground with a clatter. I. Wang Susu suddenly tensed up, her expression full of fear and panic. As if afraid that in the next moment, what will come is Chen Ling's fierce scolding, facing off with punches and kicks. After waiting for a few seconds, Wang Susu was noticeably more scared when she saw Chen Ling standing still and without any unnecessary expressions on her face. Hurry down and pick up the charcoal blocks one by one back into the bamboo basket. While picking it up, he carefully peeked at Chen Ling, afraid that he might suddenly lose his temper. As a result, Chen Ling did not show any reaction. She didn't know that Chen Ling in front of her was no longer the one who would either hit or curse at her. "Did you go to the backyard to collect charcoal? I thought you were out." Chen Ling smiled. Although he had been here for 3 days, every time he saw this little daughter-in-law, he couldn't help but feel a sense of amazement in his heart. A delicate and fair face, with water-like big eyes, stood in front of Chen Ling in a lively manner. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net was as beautiful and charming as a camellia flower, delicate yet gentle and mellow. Such a pure natural beauty is extremely rare in later generations when even young girls at the age of 15 or 16 began to put on makeup. However, as Chen Ling watched Wang Susu shrink and shrink like a little rabbit, he felt a strong sense of guilt while feeling quite distressed. This scumbag has a bad brain, even such a wife would be willing to fight. Whispering inwardly, Chen Ling walked over to help her clean up the carbon, but he scared Wang Susu quite a bit. The conditioned reflex is usually wrapped around the head, with carbon black and cracked palms facing Chen Ling's gaze. It made his heart suddenly twitch abnormally. "I'll do it, you pour some hot water and wash your hands." Looking at the young woman in front of Chen Ling, even though she had not yet adapted to her new identity, she felt that she should do something. "Otherwise, I really don't feel very comfortable in my heart." As soon as Chen Ling spoke these words, Wang Susu was stunned for a moment. Shui Lingling's apricot eyes widened slightly, indicating some surprise. But soon, Wang Susu seemed to have thought of something. With a gloomy expression, she lowered her head and whispered, "You don't need to do this. Our family really doesn't have any money left, and we only have the watch my dad left for you when we got married. If you really want to go play, just go." Wang Susu choked up as she spoke, squatting on the threshold, unable to continue her words behind her. Chen Ling was momentarily speechless and didn't know how to explain. But Wang Susu's series of reactions gave him another understanding of the severity of the original owner. What a damn sin. This bastard has left him a considerable mess. Alas, what a troublesome matter. Chapter 2. Farmland. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is there anyone at home? At this moment, a shout came in from outside the door, breaking the brief silence between the two. Realizing that someone was coming, Wang Susu quickly wiped her tears on her sleeve. "You go wash your hands, I'll see who's here." Chen Lingchong and Wang Susu said a sentence, pulled on the electric lights in the yard, lifted the door curtain, and walked out. Taking advantage of the light, a thin black old man wearing a blue and white headscarf and a blue Zhongshan suit entered the house carrying a flashlight. "Oh, I came back quite early today, rich and noble." Seeing Chen Ling come out, the thin and black old man smiled and revealed a set of yellow teeth, saying hello. Without waiting for Chen Ling to respond, he asked, "Where's Su Su? Are you at home? I need to inform her again if there's something I need to do." Chen Ling was taken aback for a moment, then understood that in the eyes of outsiders, he was already a useless lazy person. So if there's anything at home, come and discuss with his wife. "It's Uncle Wu, it's cold outside. Come in and sit down quickly." At this moment, Wang Susu welcomed the old man out and quickly called him in. The old man smiled and waved his hand, "I won't come into the house anymore. Today, I came over to talk about 2 things. One is that I should pay my child's withdrawal money from the new year, and the other is about your family exchanging farmland with the Erju family. Of course, the main thing is about exchanging farmland. I need to remind you again. This is not about to start spring soon. If it can be completed, it should be completed as soon as possible. If we don't have a few more days, the village will have to re-divide the farmland, which is troublesome for everyone. After listening to what the old man said, Chen Ling didn't feel much. Just taking advantage of the gap, I remembered who this old man was. The old man's name is Wang Laishun, the village chief and village branch secretary of Chen Wangzwang. Because our family is ranked 5th, the younger generation is either called Uncle Wu or Grandpa Wu. At the same time, Chen Ling also remembered his nickname, Chen Fugui, which was changed only after going to school. Compared to Chen Ling's other thoughts, Wang Susu's reaction was a bit overwhelming. Uncle Wu, didn't you say that my family would exchange with Sister Xiuying's family? Why did it become an exchange with the second pillar's family? Wang Susu has a clear idea about the withdrawal of funds, but how did she change her mind about exchanging farmland in the end? Xiuying's sister-in-law's land has good fertility and is close to the village, which is incomparable to the wasteland at the foot of the Erzhu family's mountain. The differences between them are vastly different. Ah! You don't know. Wang Laishun widened his eyes upon hearing this, frowned and looked at Wang Susu, then at Chen Ling. Then he said, but I heard from Erzhu that you know, and he also said that every acre of land has added 200 yuan to your family. He gave me a note, and you and Fugui both pressed their fingerprints on it. Wang Laishun said and took out a cigarette box from his shirt pocket. There is a stack of paper strips in the cigarette box. I saw the old man pull out one of them and hand it over to Wang Susu. Take a look, is it your 2 fingerprints? Wang Susu didn't take the note immediately when she saw it, but glanced at Chen Ling before taking it into her hand. Opening it up, Wang Susu's face quickly turned pale. Looking at Chen Ling with both shock and grievance, he said, did you exchange our land for the Erzhu family? Do you know that the grass on the land of the Erzhu family is not growing well, and there is no way to grow food? What will we rely on to make a living in the future? Wang Susu's voice was already tinged with tears, her eyes filled with tears, and she clenched her lower lip as she looked at Chen Ling. Chen Ling was a bit confused by this, but when he saw Wang Susu being angry and crying, he didn't dare to say much. Rubbing his forehead, Chen Ling vaguely remembered a scene in his mind. A while ago, there was a temple fair in the county town, and Chen Erzhu took him to the singing and dancing hall to drink freely. What happened during this period? The original owner's memory is missing. But after coming out drunk at night, Chen Erzhu hugged his shoulder and said something, then laughed and stuffed a piece of paper with red ink into his pocket. At the thought of this scene, Chen Ling's mind buzzed for a moment. He thought to himself, can't it be that the original owner didn't get money from Wang Susu on the day of the temple fair? After hearing that Erzhu would provide a subsidy of 200 yuan per acre of land, he agreed to exchange farmland with him, right? And then, at night, secretly pressed the fingerprint with Wang Susu's hand. Damn it! You know, that night, this guy even found an excuse to hit Wang Susu. Is this something done by humans? Since you have the ability to beat your wife, why are you secretly holding someone's hand and pressing their fingerprints? This jerk is truly refreshing his values time and time again. The most infuriating thing is that he has to take over all these mess now. Susu, Chen Ling is also speechless. What can he say in this situation? Although Wang Susu pressed the fingerprint without knowing it, after all, it was pressed. To be honest, no one else believed it. So it's no use trying to back out now. If you don't admit to being a scoundrel, it would be easy to destroy the note with the fingerprint. But his reputation is even worse, and Wang Susu will not be able to face anyone in the future. In his past life in his rural hometown, he had also seen many cunning people publicly eat promissory notes, vouchers, and even lottery votes, but the outcome was not very good. Rural roads are smoother and people's hearts are more complex. It's not just talk. It's common for trivial matters to get up and not talk for half a lifetime. Not to mention the involvement of arable land, there is also the famous scoundrel Chen Erzhu. Wang Susu squatted on the ground and started crying. Chen Ling pinched the note and looked at the 2 glaring red handprints on top, unable to resist gritting his teeth at the original owner. Ah, Su, don't cry for now. I think this matter won't work, so I'll talk to Zhu again. As for the villagers, it's easy to discuss something. Wang Laishan sighed and advised. When he came, he was still puzzled. Wang Su, this girl, is quite shrewd. How could she agree to change the wasteland of the Zhu family? I can't believe it was done by Chen Ling, a black sheep, so there's nothing to say. You don't have to worry about selling your master's land, my child. Wang Laishan glanced at Chen Ling and thought to himself, this lazy kid is just lacking discipline, especially after I die, he's just not a person. With this thought in mind, he reached out and pulled the note that had been printed from Chen Ling's hand back. You have pressed your fingerprints, and I can't stand out and help anyone. I'll leave this note with me for now. This year, high-voltage power lines will be installed in the south, taking up a lot of arable land, as you all know. Next month, the village will come to measure the land, and each household will have to re-divide the land. It's not many days, so you should hurry up and discuss with the Zhu family to come up with a result. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. There are still a few places to go around. Wang Laishan dropped a few words and was about to leave with his hands behind his back. At this moment, Wang Su stopped him again and said, Uncle Wu, wait a moment. I'll get you the withdrawal money. Wang Laishan walked to the entrance of the courtyard and patted his forehead upon hearing this. He thought to himself that he almost forgot about this matter, but he said it was not urgent. It would be the same if he had to pay in a few days. He just came to inform and so on. Chen Ling saw that the old man was being pretentious and polite. After all, the withdrawal funds for this year were not small, so he didn't talk to him much and followed Wang Su into the house. Upon entering the room, Wang Su pulled out a small black wooden box, thin and rectangular, from his pillow and took out a stack of money. Judging from the amount, there is 180 yuan, which is probably enough to pay the withdrawal funds for the two of them. TSK, this little daughter.in.law has quite a clever mind. You have chosen a good place to hide money, it's dark under the light. Ha! Why does this wooden box look so familiar? Suddenly, Chen Ling's gaze fixed and his attention was drawn to the black wooden box in Wang Su's hand. Isn't it? How could this thing appear here? Chen Ling had a ghostly expression, both excited and frightened, and quickly walked over to take a look. Wang Su was startled and tightly covered the money in her hand, whispering, "This is not something I deliberately hid, it's for emergency use in case of any accidents at home. I need to pay the retention fee now and cannot move it." Chen Ling knew he was too excited when he saw this, but it was strange that he could hold back his excitement when he saw this familiar object here. "I won't move the money, I just want to see this box, can I?" Chen Ling took a soft breath and forcefully suppressed his trembling and stirring emotions, explaining to Wang Su. "But he has too many criminal records." Wang Su was not willing to believe it. She cried so much that her eyes turned red and she looked at him in fear. However, she hid the box and money behind her and trembled, saying, "No, no, no. You reading www. Bukanshu. Net, please, this money really can't be moved. Don't move, definitely not move. I won't move a penny of the money in your hand. Just give me this wooden box. Really, all I need is this wooden box." Chen Ling repeatedly assured that he was already extremely anxious. "Just a box." Wang Su was momentarily taken aback, then blinked as if she understood something. She glanced at Chen Ling and handed the wooden box over, saying, "There's no money left in here, and there's only a little money left at home. It's just enough to pay for the withdrawal and retention of the two of us." When she said this, Wang Su's eyes were a bit evasive, the kind of avoidance she was afraid of someone. She was afraid that Chen Ling would not allow the withdrawal and retention of funds when she heard that there was only a little money left at home. But Chen Ling didn't even notice these things at this moment. He couldn't contain his excitement and grabbed the wooden box in his hand, flipping it back and forth to look at it. Seeing Chen Ling's demeanor, I thought he suspected he was still hiding money in the wooden box. Wang Susu's eyes darkened as she muttered, "Then, I'll go and pay the withdrawal money to Uncle Wu first." Speaking cautiously, he looked at Chen Ling, clearly afraid that he would make a fuss and stopped him from paying. After Wang Susu finished speaking, she saw Chen Ling still tinkering with the small black box, without any special reaction. She breathed a little sigh of relief and quickly grabbed the money and walked out. Within a minute of Wang Susu leaving, Chen Ling's face was filled with ecstasy. Exactly the same. It's exactly the same as the auction in the country where I had a good time at the Tokyo Olympic Games. Is that why I'm wearing it more and more in 1995? Look at this shape, it can't be a moonlight treasure box, can it? Chapter 3. Dongtian. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. This black wooden box is thin and rectangular, with intricate patterns on the top, and is old and rustic. It has to be said that it is quite similar to the moonlight treasure box image portrayed in the movie. Chen Ling is not sure if this thing has the ability to travel back and forth like the moonlight box. However, he was certain that this thing was inevitably related to his time traveling back to 1995. When I auctioned it overseas, I just felt that this black wooden box belonged to my country and didn't want it to be left out. I didn't think much about anything else. As for the Cherry Blossom Auction House's external claims that this thing is a secret box left by the imperial family during the Tianbao period of the Tang dynasty, it is purely a gimmick. At first glance, it was designed to attract foolish and wealthy Chinese people to bid. Of course, although this black wooden box is not known to be made of various types of wood, it cannot be considered exquisite, but rather it is rich in ancient charm. As a collectible, it is not very wrong. An old man accompanying him has a good understanding of antiques and knows the general methods for identifying their authenticity. No one can guarantee that this box is indeed an old item from ancient China, as for whether it is from the Tang dynasty. Chen Ling didn't care too much at that time. He wasn't originally aiming for wealth, as long as it was something from ancient China. After the auction ended and he took a hot spring bath, he even played with the box for a while. Later, a friend said he wanted to taste the unique customs here, but he didn't feel embarrassed to refuse, so he stuffed the box under his pillow and didn't mind. He can't remember clearly what happened afterwards. As soon as he opened his eyes, he became the same Chen Ling from the parallel world in 1995. Sigh, after working hard for half a lifetime, can't I just enjoy it? This journey, there's nothing left. Although there are virtuous wives here that are difficult to choose from among 10,000 people in later generations, there are also relatives and friends that I care about and cannot let go of in later generations. Chen Ling fiddled with the black wooden box, opening and closing it with a clattering sound, and gradually a lot of melancholy grew in his heart. It's okay for me to be here, but if I disappear from another time and space, my old friends who watched the Olympics with me may be affected. Secret box brother, secret box grandpa. Can you send me back? Prajna Parami. Return to the year 2021 in the original world. Sesame opens the door. Chen Ling tried many times, but the black box didn't respond. He believes that this black wooden box is closely related to his travels. He just didn't know if he could let it send him back. Because Chen Ling has not forgotten that his soul has now traveled to this parallel world, replacing himself in this world. In a sense, Chen Ling from two parallel worlds has merged together, and he is no longer the same as before. The possibility of going back is very low. After studying for most of the day, Chen Ling couldn't come up with a reason, which caused him to not sleep well that night. Since I know this secret box is special, even if I can't go back, I still want to uncover its secret. This is human nature. So the next morning, Chen Ling got up and fiddled with the black wooden box, but still didn't get much. The feeling of seeing hope but not being able to get through the door made him feel very frustrated, and a few strands of sadness couldn't help but appear on his face. Wang Susu saw that he was in a bad mood and slept with a box all night last night. Thinking that he hadn't found any money inside, she felt unhappy and didn't dare to provoke him. So she silently took out the waste charcoal from the stove and went outside to dispose of it. Chen Ling pinched the box, recalling some details of obtaining it before and after crossing the time, feeling a bit dazed. It wasn't until Wang Susu came in to talk to him that he interrupted his thoughts. I heard someone outside saying that Erju has exchanged farmland with several families in our village, and there are also those who do not exchange farmland with him. He will spend money to contract them. I've been wrapping it for several years. I heard I wanted to build a greenhouse. Build a greenhouse. Chen Ling blinked and looked at Wang Susu. Subsequently, he remembered the policies around 1995 that encouraged the cultivation of greenhouses and the second round of household land contracting. Although Chen Erju is a scoundrel, he was arrested a few years ago. But the mouse said, I don't know what's going on with this guy. After coming out, he met 2 or 3 influential people in the county and went to the county's sand-picking ground, where he actually made a lot of money. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the capital to contract land on a large scale. This time planting greenhouses, I think Chen Erju heard rumors from the county and took advantage of the opportunity to redistribute land to exchange farmland everywhere. If the exchange did not achieve success, he would have to spend his wallet. Want to grow a greenhouse to earn a lot of money. Then he probably needs to lose all his shorts this year. Chen Ling sneered and thought to himself. Why do you want to ask? Because there was a big flood in 1995. According to his memory, several counties, including this one, were heavily affected areas. Wang Susu didn't know Chen Ling's thoughts. Seeing him laughing inexplicably, as she was about to speak, she suddenly hesitated to speak. What's wrong, Susu? Chen Ling regained his senses and asked. I'm thinking, can we go discuss with Erju and, like those families in the village who don't want to exchange farmland with him, let's also contract it out to him. If he thinks it's not feasible, let's first pay him an extra 2 years based on the money he paid for the land exchange subsidy. Wang Susu spoke softly, feeling extremely scared of being beaten by Chen Ling. Although speaking to her husband, her posture was like begging for help. Speaking later, his eyes couldn't help but dodge, afraid to look at Chen Ling. Because she understood that the money that Chen Erju had subsidized must have been almost wasted by Chen Ling. Even if I haven't spent it all, I definitely won't take it out again. She doesn't have the courage to say anything like asking Chen Ling to return the second pillar. We can only negotiate with Chen Ling as tactfully as possible, and exchange the land subsidy money with Chen Erju to give him a few more years of contract. In this case, Chen Ling doesn't have to move the money in his hand and the land can be preserved, so the likelihood of his opposition is smaller. In addition, people like Chen Erju, who belong to the dog family, are too lazy to talk to you by negotiating terms with him and not willing to give up some meat. I heard from other people in the village that they all contract 100 yuan per acre of land to Erju for 1 year, and he exchanges land with us to provide a subsidy of 200 yuan per acre. We can give him this 200 yuan for 3 or 4 years. Just don't exchange farmland with our family. Is that okay? After Wang Susu finished speaking, she almost looked at Chen Ling with pleading eyes. In order to save her family's land, she mustered up the courage. At other times, how dare you say so much in front of Chen Ling? But to her surprise, Chen Ling nodded and said hello after listening to her words, then smiled and said, I'll go to the county town after breakfast and discuss farming with Erju again. At this moment, Wang Susu was a bit confused, even doubting whether her ears had heard it wrong. According to Chen Ling's personality and temperament, he shouldn't agree so easily, shouldn't he? Did he also regret it? Wanting to ask but not daring to ask, seeing Chen Ling finish this sentence and walk out, he sighed helplessly and walked to the side to prepare breakfast. In fact, she didn't know that Chen Ling was no longer the same as before. How could she, as usual, be scolded or beaten whenever there was anything wrong with her? But Chen Ling is worried about the blackwood box, and is a little absent-minded. Otherwise, how could one glance at the former Chen Ling and not take care of her feelings without doing anything? Difficult to deal with this thing. Chen Ling put down the box, took 2 breaths of fresh morning air, stretched his muscles and bones a few times, preparing to clear his mind, otherwise he would be driven crazy by this box. Cluck, cluck. The old hen at home has laid eggs and is pacing around the yard, shouting loudly and showing off. Upon seeing this, Chen Ling grabbed 2 handfuls of bran and placed them in the stone trough of the chicken coop. He poured water and stirred it until it became thin, rewarding the old hen who laid eggs. Then I walked over to the water well and washed up for a while, and my whole body suddenly felt much clearer. Then he took out his secret box again and carefully scrutinized the sunlight. Hey! Do you have any characters? Chen Ling's gaze paused, fixed on a twisted text inside the box. This is a dim to almost disappearing text, engraved in the middle position inside the box. Twisted like ghost symbols, similar to Zhong Dingguan, like the eyes of a monster. Chen Ling couldn't distinguish the specific character and didn't understand what it meant. There's also one over here. There is also a similar text in the middle of the other half of Chen Ling's box, which is also dim and almost disappears. If you don't look closely, you can hardly find it. Staring at these 2 mysterious texts, Chen Ling studied in the yard for a long time, but couldn't come up with a reason, which actually made Chen Ling dizzy and disoriented. Not only does it look blurry, but there is also a feeling of nausea and vomiting. Not good. You can't look at this ghost talisman too much. If you look too much, it will cause problems. Wealthy and simple, it's amazing, it's amazing. Chen Ling was about to squat on the ground to slow down when Wang Lixuan's voice came from outside the yard. In a daze, I saw a thin and black old man push open the fence door and hurriedly walk in. What's wrong, Uncle Wu? What happened? Wang Susu was cooking when she heard the commotion and quickly walked out of the room. Heir Zhu found connections in the county and wanted to build a greenhouse in advance. Now, the township government has approved the documents, and the land used for Heir Zhu's greenhouse has been designated. If it is contracted, it is contracted. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net is the exchanged cultivated land, which belongs to the 2 pillars. The exchanged farmland cannot be changed, and your family's land cannot be exchanged back now. Wang Lixuan's voice was urgent, but every sentence made Wang Susu's face pale. While they were talking, Chen Ling could only hear the sound, and everything was spinning in front of him, making it difficult to see clearly. In the end, I felt like I couldn't hold on anymore, and my eyes turned black as I stumbled to the ground with a thud. Ling. Wealth and prosperity. There were 2 screams of surprise in the yard, and Chen Ling could no longer hear them. After an unknown amount of time, Chen Ling opened his eyes, surrounded by a white mist. I can only see clearly that there is a stone tablet in front of me, engraved with a mysterious twisted text. Look carefully, the first 2 words are exactly the same as those in the secret box. Sun and Moon. Dongtian. For some unknown reason, Chen Ling now recognized the ghost symbols that he couldn't understand before at a glance. Originally, the 2 characters engraved inside the secret box were day and month. I was brought here by a secret box. Chen Ling looked at the words on the stone tablet and murmured to himself. Gently touching the stone tablet, it was not as rough as it looked on the surface, but rather as warm as jade, making it very comfortable to touch. However, just as Chen Ling came into contact with the stone tablet, a gentle breeze blew around him, and thick white mist began to gather towards the stone tablet. What situation is this? Chen Ling was surprised and quickly took his hand away. But then, something even more surprising happened, as a thick white mist began to rush crazily into his body. Chapter 4. Magic. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. White mist poured into Chen Ling's body, and she was surprised to find that she was now in a state of soul. But the body of one's own soul not only refuses these white mist visitors, but also has an inexplicable desire to actively absorb these white mist. He had never encountered such a thing before, instinctively attracted by the magical scene before him. With the influx of white mist, Chen Ling's soul was warm, like soaking in hot spring water in winter. Quickly, the white mist was completely consumed and absorbed by Chen Ling. Chen Ling's whole body was full of a comfortable and transparent feeling, as if he had been cleaned from the inside out. I only feel that I am a few years younger. How comfortable. Chen Ling couldn't help but let out a soft moan and shook his hands, feeling the abundant power and real touch. I found that my soul was almost no different from a real person. The sun, moon, and cave. What a magical place. Is this white mist the legendary fairy aura? I was speculating in my heart, but my eyes were drawn to the scene after the white mist had dissipated. Standing in front of the stone monument and looking back, there was a lush forest with various strange trees that Chen Ling had never seen before. A shaded path is embedded in the forest, winding and winding towards the depths of the forest, giving a sense of elegance with winding paths. Chen Ling walked a few steps down the path and saw a thatched cottage not far away. This moved his mind and surprised him a bit. Is it difficult? Is there anyone else here? In a moment, walking up to the thatched cottage, I looked up and saw a plaque hanging in front of the thatched cottage door. The plaque is inscribed with the 4 characters sun, moon, and small buildings, also written in that mysterious language, and Chen Ling can already understand its meaning. But there is clearly no one living inside the thatched cottage. There are only a few simple furnishings, a futon and a bamboo bed. The rest is a very old-fashioned hoe and 2 bamboo hats. The hoe was made of some kind of hard stone, and it was dusty and heavy. Chen Ling couldn't lift it with one hand. Perhaps this is a fairy's cave. Chen Ling thought to himself. I looked around in the thatched cottage again, but didn't get much. Then I walked out of the thatched cottage and walked deep down the shady path. About 200 to 300 meters later, a small stream appeared in front of Chen Ling and crossed the forest. The stream is crystal clear and translucent, much clearer than the mountain springs outside the village. Ju took a handful of stream water and drank it, feeling sweet and delicious, and the soul warmed once again. The feeling of integrating into the body is similar to that of white mist, but the warm feeling quickly dissipates. Compared to white mist, the effect is weakened many times. Chen Ling continued to walk down the stream, and as he walked, he saw an ancient stone arch bridge. Under the bridge, there was a huge lotus pond, covered with emerald green lotus leaves and bright lotus flowers. From a distance, it is truly the boundless blue lotus leaves that touch the sky, and the lotus flowers that reflect the sun are exceptionally red. The gentle breeze blew, and the lotus leaves swayed gently, making a clattering sound. Mixing the fragrance of lotus, Chen Ling was intoxicated unconsciously. Close your eyes and open your arms. Listen to the gentle breeze and the babbling water with your ears. Sniff the fresh air and the fragrance of flowers and plants with your nose. I just feel that my whole body and mind have become lighter. For a long time, Chen Ling opened his eyes, breathed a sigh of relief, and slowly walked up the stone arch bridge, wanting to continue walking and take a look. Up the stone arch bridge, looking around, not far away is an ancient stone pavilion. Strange flowers and plants are planted around the pavilion, as well as a few scattered fruit trees. From a distance, there is also a colorful glow enveloping the sky above the pavilion. It is truly a picturesque scene of the immortal family. Tsk tisk. This immortal senior also knows how to enjoy it too much, decorating it with such emotional charm. Chen Ling walked up to the pavilion and sincerely admired it. I walked around the pavilion, but there were no more inscriptions on it, which disappointed Chen Ling, who wanted to learn more about this place. But soon, he was attracted by the numerous fruits hanging on the fruit tree outside the pavilion, and tiptoed to pick two. I casually wiped it and then put the unknown fruit into my mouth. Just as Chen Ling took a bite, before he could fully appreciate the delicious taste of the fruit, he noticed two flower buds sprouting from the branch next to the two fruits he had picked. Then, under Chen Ling's dull gaze, he grew up at a speed visible to the naked eye, bloomed and bore fruit. In just a few breaths, two plump and juicy fruits had grown again. This. Is it so magical to eat one and grow one? Chen Ling was suddenly so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Quickly, I tried several different varieties of fruit trees outside the pavilion, including flowers, plants, trees, and even the lotus and lotus roots in the lotus pond. The result naturally did not disappoint him. Within this day, moon, and cave, whatever it was, could grow rapidly. In order to thoroughly verify this matter, Chen Ling even ran back to the thatched cottage and dug several pits with a hoe, then planted leftover fruit pits and cut a few flower branches. Watching the buried fruit pit sprout rapidly, it grows again into a fruit tree full of fruits, and the flower branches grow back into a separate plant and bloom with fresh flowers. Chen Ling was so excited that he almost jumped up. Good guy, this is just a treasure trove. What is it that this is not a treasure trove? It is infinite and inexhaustible. Chen Ling rubbed his hands and was momentarily stunned, with a thought coming to his mind. Since things can grow rapidly within this cave, can we bring things from outside and plant them inside the cave? Hey, that's not right. Can you bring something to the cave without saying it for now? How should I go out? Chen Ling only then realized this problem. As soon as the thought of going out arose in Chen Ling's mind, a white light flashed in front of him. Then he discovered that he had already come out of the cave and was now lying on a white hard bed covered in a thick cotton quilt. Surrounded by smoky black walls, there is a wire hanging horizontally between the east and west walls, with an iron hook hanging at a distance. There is also a pile of paper ash at the four bed legs on the ground. Chen Ling's heart tightened upon seeing this. This is not home, where is this? Why is there so much paper dust left? Can it be that after the soul enters the sun-moon cave, there is something special about the body that makes the little daughter-in-law think she is hopeless? Is anyone there? Su su, su su. Chen Ling shouted a few times without anyone responding, quickly got out of bed and walked out. Stepping out of the room, he found it pitch black everywhere. It was already night and there was no light at all, but surprisingly, his eyes could see things clearly. I looked around and it was reasonable to say that in the first 3 days of his journey, he had almost turned around. Yu was reading at www.yuukeangshu.net, but I couldn't recognize what this place was. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from not far away. Chen Ling followed the sound and saw a group of people driving donkey carts towards this direction. The leader is none other than Wang Laishan. Because there is a light on in this room, you can see Chen Ling standing outside the door at a glance from the other side. Do you see that wealth and prosperity have awakened? Really, isn't this all for nothing? This kid has nothing to do. Someone in front of him was about to complain, and Wang Laishan immediately glared, "What's wrong with Hu Hui? Shut up for me." Chen Ling approached and said, "Uncle Wu, what are you doing here? I'll take you to the township health center." Wang Laishan held the donkey whip and looked at him up and down, grinning with big yellow teeth and sighing, "Thank you for waking up. Otherwise, you have been unconscious all along, and none of us can do anything about it. Your national elder brother said you haven't woken up for more than 10 hours, and if you delay, it will be troublesome. We need to hurry to the township health center. You said you kid, quietly exchanged farmland with Erju, and now I heard that it can't be exchanged back. Why is there such a big reaction? Regret it?" Chen Ling didn't know how to answer after hearing this. Someone interjected next to him, is it necessary to ask, Uncle Wu? I must have regretted it. 2 pillars have contracted someone else's land, and they will pay back 100 yuan per acre of land every year. He exchanged his own farmland for Erju for 200 yuan, and in the future, he won't come back even if he wants to. Compared to others, he lost to his grandmother's house and won't regret putting it on anyone. Isn't it true that even the wealthy have regretted fainting? As soon as these words were spoken, a group of people burst into laughter. Chapter 5. Little White Rabbit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Ling glanced at the person and recognized him as the one who had gone out to work with the original owner in his early years. He had spoken good words to the original owner several times back then, but unfortunately, that bastard was not up to par and caused him to lose his job. Since then, he has held a grudge against him. What nonsense! If you have nothing to do, help me drive the donkey home. Wang Laishan glared again and handed the donkey whip to the man. Go, 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 everyone, it's none of your business anymore. So a group of young people drove away with a donkey cart, leaving only Wang Laishan and an old man carrying a medicine box. Chen Ling looked around but didn't see Wang Susu, so he asked, "Where is Susu?" Susu thought you were going to be hospitalized this time, so she went home to pack her things. Wang Laishan glanced at him and said, "All right, since you're awake, let's go into the house and have your gulping elder brother's pulse number checked. Let's see if there's anything else." "No need, I'm fine now." Chen Ling waved his hand. He knew his situation, but he had been in the sun, moon, and cave for too long. After coming out, not only was my body fine, but my physical fitness also improved a bit. Well, he looks pretty good and speaks confidently, so it's really not a big deal. The old man next to him glanced at Chen Ling and nodded, "If there's anything uncomfortable, come back to the clinic to find me." Health room. Chen Ling glanced at the small house behind him and realized that this was the clinic of Chen Wangzhuang. It didn't even have a medicine cabinet, it was really simple. Uncle Wu, I heard that Ling woke up." At this moment, Wang Susu's voice suddenly sounded. "I saw her carrying a bundle and hurriedly running over." Wang Laishan responded and said, "Yes, I'm awake. Your elder brother Guoping has taken a look and it's not a big deal. You don't need to go to the health clinic. It's okay, it's okay. Today is really troublesome for Uncle Wu and brother Guoping." Wang Susu thanked the 2 old men and looked at Chen Ling. Seeing that he was indeed intact, I breathed a complete sigh of relief. Chen Ling saw that his daughter-in-law's watery eyes were a bit swollen and red. It was obvious that she had cried before and was about to say something, but Wang Laishan spoke out to drive her away. "It's late at night. Since wealth and status are fine, you young couple should hurry back home. Okay, Uncle Wu and brother Guoping should also go home early to rest." It was indeed very late, so the 2 of them said goodbye and left. There was nothing to say along the way. After returning home, Wang Susu put back the items of her bundle one by one. Chen Ling washed his face with hot water. "Are you hungry? I'll go cook a bowl of noodles for you." Wang Susu put things away and whispered in a low voice. I didn't ask Chen Ling why he had such a big reaction when he heard that the farmland couldn't be exchanged, and he fainted directly in the yard. Based on her understanding of Chen Ling, asking such an embarrassing question would anger him. When the time comes to get angry, it's inevitable to punch and kick her. "No need, I'm not hungry." Chen Ling shook her head. After coming out of the sun-moon cave, not only did her vision improve and she was able to see at night, but she also didn't feel hungry after not eating for a long time. "You haven't eaten all day, so you have to eat something to some extent," Wang Susu said with concern, but her voice was very soft and she still dared not speak loudly. Chen Ling looked at this low-profile and cautious demeanor, and felt quite uncomfortable in her heart. "I'm really not hungry, you." Halfway through the conversation, Chen Ling was suddenly stunned, but a bruise suddenly appeared under Wang Susu's hair. Extremely dazzling. Chen Ling's heart suddenly felt like he had been pricked, and he gently reached out his hand. Wang Susu was startled, thinking that Chen Ling had become angry again. Her eyes were filled with panic and she said, Ling, if you're really not hungry, I won't ask anymore. The appearance of wanting to hide but not daring to do so made Chen Ling feel heartbroken. Reaching out to stroke the bruise, he whispered, Susu, is it still painful here? Ah! Wang Susu's delicate body trembled. She thought Chen Ling was going to hit her again, but unexpectedly heard this sentence. I quietly lifted my head and glanced at him. But seeing him looking at the bruises on his forehead, full of pity and guilt, Wang Susu was immediately stunned. My heart suddenly became sour and astringent for some unknown reason. For a moment, the eyes that were crying red and swollen couldn't help but be filled with tears. Don't cry, Susu. It's all my fault, I won't hit you again in the future. Chen Ling spoke in a difficult tone, feeling very uncomfortable in his heart. He really doesn't know how to make up for the damage his predecessor caused to Wang Susu. So after traveling through so many days, I don't know how to face her. Now that he saw the bruise that had not dispersed for a long time, Chen Ling couldn't hold back. Pop! Chen Ling slapped himself in the face. Ling! Wang Susu let out a scream and grabbed Chen Ling's hand, crying, Ling, don't do this, I don't want you to do this. It's all my fault, Susu. I'm not a qualified husband. I didn't let you have a good day after you got married, asking for money from you every day, and scolding or beating you. Follow me, you've suffered. Speaking, Chen Ling lifted his other hand and slapped himself again. After he emerged from the Sun Moon Cave, his strength increased significantly, and this slap made his mouth bleed. Ling! Wang Susu was stunned for a moment. Chen Ling's words made all the ups and downs that had been buried in her heart in the past surge into her heart, and tears welled up in an instant. Susu, don't cry. It's my fault, I owe you a lot. Chen Ling shook her head and reached out to help her wipe her tears. But as a result, the more she rubbed Wang Susu, the more she couldn't stop crying. Finally, Wang Susu choked up with tears on her face and said, I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. Ling. Although she was crying, her tearful eyes timidly looked at Chen Ling, feeling somewhat flattered. At that moment, this gaze made Chen Ling extremely uncomfortable, and his nose also became sour. Stop crying, Susu. From today on, I will rely on you for everything, listen to you for the rest of my life, and treat you well for the rest of my life. This time, you have to believe me. As a result, Wang Susu was still just crying. Her fried dough twists braids were unraveled, and her hair was black and long. She buried her whole face in her long hair, constantly sobbing. Chen Ling helplessly reached out and held her in his arms, whispering in her ear, Susu, I assure you that from now on, I will definitely turn over and be devoted to treating you well. I will listen to your words and live a good life with you. Can you believe me? Me, I don't know either, woo-woo. Wang Susu's voice became even more choked, and then she threw herself into Chen Ling's arms and burst into tears. Chen Ling's body stiffened for a moment, but at the same time, there was a strange palpitation in his heart. But soon he relaxed and looked at Wang Susu, who was still crying incessantly, and let out a long sigh in his heart. Stop crying, stop crying. If Susu doesn't believe me, I'll show you. Chen Ling spoke softly, sniffing the sweet scent on Wang Susu's body. He picked her up and gently kissed the bruise on her forehead. Wang Susu had never been treated like this before, her body suddenly tensed up, and her crying seemed to have been paused, abruptly stopping. The small head buried in Chen Ling's arms was gently lifted up, and the tears-soaked broken hair pressed tightly against her temples, reflecting her face becoming increasingly snow-white and tender. A pair of bright red eyes flickered with fear and confusion. Like a pitiful, soft and weak little white rabbit. Chen Ling's entire heart was instantly melted. Late at night, Wang Susu had already fallen asleep, while Chen Ling kept coming in and out, shuttling between the sun, moon, cave, and reality. He is experimenting with some of his conjectures. For example, now he is squatting in the yard with a bowl of water in his hand. It is a stream brought out from the sun-moon cave. In the pitch-black night, emitting a faint fluorescence. Like the sparkling river water under the moonlight, it is very magical. What's going on? The stream, which looks quite ordinary inside the cave, surprisingly undergoes such astonishing changes when brought to the outside world. Shouldn't it have become the legendary fairy precious jade liquid? Chen Ling felt a bit uneasy in his heart. Then I tried taking a small sip. The taste is no different from inside the cave, with the same sweet and refreshing taste. I just don't have the warm feeling of drinking anymore. Perhaps it's because my cave is a soul body. Chen Ling guessed in his heart and took a few more sips. It wasn't until I finished drinking this bowl of water that I felt my stomach rumbling and a layer of oily sweat gushing out on the surface of my skin. Is that all? Is it just detoxifying, beautifying, and aiding digestion? Blinking his eyes, Chen Ling felt a little disappointed in his heart. The stream, brought out from the cave, became fluorescent and sparkling, and he almost thought it had become divine water. Wipe off any oil or sweat on your body with a damp towel. Chen Ling suddenly realized that his body seemed to be much fresher and more transparent, and his whole body was more powerful. At the same time, his mind was full of energy, without any drowsiness. It still has some magical effects. Perhaps it's because I drank too little. Chen Ling was quite puzzled, so he went to the cave and brought out another bowl. Still shining with fluorescence, very beautiful. After drinking it, the effect was even weaker than before. What's the situation? Why is the effect getting worse after drinking too much? Chen Ling frowned and took out another bowl. I tried it, but the effect was much worse. With a sigh, Chen Ling didn't feel in the mood to drink anymore and just splashed the remaining water onto the ground. Try again tomorrow. I don't know if it's only effective after drinking for the first time, or is it the maximum amount of one bowl per day. Chen Ling didn't understand either and decided to try other speculations first. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net for example, can things brought into the sun, moon, and cave from the outside world be cultivated? Chen Ling searched at home and broke off several branches of the pear and peach trees. He also found some peanuts and red dates from the basket in the house. Then enter the cave. After the thatched cottage, Chen Ling searched for an open space. Holding a hoe, I dug out small pits on the ground. Plant peanuts and red dates. Then cut the branches of the pear and peach trees. Immediately after, in the blink of an eye, tender buds sprouted from the land in front of me, growing rapidly and bearing fruit. Pear trees, peach trees, and jujube trees are hanging full of fruits. Peanuts have also grown into small pieces. Chen Ling breathed a sigh of relief, as long as something outside could grow in the cave. In this way, there are also fewer restrictions on development. Otherwise, most of the plants in the cave are not available outside, and it's difficult to explain why you want to sell them for money when you're short of money. It's okay to do it twice, but more times can lead to problems. The land inside this cave is really a treasure trove. Chen Ling bent down and gently picked up a handful of soil. The soil is soft and fertile, not black soil, just ordinary soil color. But I leaned over my nose and sniffed it, still carrying an indescribable fragrance. Chen Ling took a deep breath, intoxicated, and warned himself in his heart, in the future, you must be cautious and keep the secret of this cave. This is a great creation. But then, Chen Ling also discovered a problem. That is, in the sun-moon cave, there seems to be no other living creatures besides flowers, plants, and trees. Flowers, Birds, insects, and fish are nowhere to be found. Chapter 6. Warm Heart. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Can't live creatures survive in the cave? Or is there something else that caused the absence of living creatures inside? Chen Ling murmured and then returned to reality from the cave, ready to give it a try. Ouch! Just as he stood up, Chen Ling suddenly tripped and almost fell. What is it? Chen Ling lowered his head and looked dumbfounded. On the land just before the meeting, a large area of morning glory unexpectedly grew, with lush branches and leaves, and vines as thick as 2 fingers, very hard. At this moment, there were trumpet-shaped small flowers blooming, both blue and white, emitting a faint fragrance. Damn it, what's going on? Chen Ling was a bit confused for a moment. But soon it seemed like something was coming to mind, and I widened my eyes and said, Shouldn't this be caused by the half bowl of water I spilled on the ground? Think carefully. Actually, there won't be any other possibilities besides that half bowl of water. Because there is nothing that can possess the magical effect of allowing plants to grow rapidly like the sun, moon, and cave. Unless such things also come from the sun, moon, and cave. I think there are morning glory seeds in the soil in the yard, which is very common in rural areas. When the wind blows, which yard does not have some grass seeds? As long as there is no one living for a period of time, it is normal for grass to grow in the yard and on the house. Originally, you came and went in the yard, stepping on and on this morning glory cannot grow, and the seeds cannot sprout at all. But now it has been stimulated with vitality by the half bowl of stream water, rapidly growing into such a large area. It seems that the streams in the cave not only have some benefits for the human body, but also have greater benefits for plants. Hey, in that case, exchanging the vast wasteland of the Erju family would be very promising. While thinking, Chen Ling reached out and pulled out these morning glory vines. As a result, this thing takes root deeply and is extremely difficult to pull out due to its tangled roots. On the other hand, it also reflects that when the stream water in Dongtian acts on plants, the effect is simply not very good. Unable to pull it out by hand, Chen Ling had to take out the stone hoe from the cave and scrape it off. Although the stone hoe is heavy, it is surprisingly useful. In 3 or 5 strokes, I dug out this large area of morning glory. Chen Ling shook his hand and threw it into the cave. Then he scratched his head and said, what did I do just now? Being stirred up by the morning glory incident, Chen Ling forgot a bit what she had just planned to do. Oh, by the way, living creatures. Chen Ling patted his forehead and said, there are no living creatures in the sun-moon cave. I need to grab some living creatures and try them inside. However, there are no ants or insects this season, where are we going to find living creatures? Chen Ling frowned and glanced around the yard. Suddenly landed on the chicken coop by the east wall. There are only a few chickens left alive at home. Although the night sky was pitch black, Chen Ling's night vision ability became very good after entering the sun-moon cave several times. Most things can be seen clearly. So he walked over, pushed open the small fence door of the chicken coop, and put his hand inside the chicken coop. At the beginning of the second lunar month, the weather is still cold, and chickens will return to the chicken coop to sleep at night, which is easier to catch. After Chen Ling reached in, he touched a hot chicken thigh. Before the chicken could react and make a sound, he forcefully pulled it and entered the sun-moon cave. Oh. This is a big rooster. The coxcomb was blood red, and the feathers were bright and shiny. At first, he was caught in this unfamiliar environment by Chen Ling and was startled. But soon he was attracted by the beautiful scenery inside the cave and the fresh and pure air. Vigorously flying to the big tree in front of the thatched cottage, he stretched his neck and let out a loud cry. Chen Ling smiled when he saw the situation. Living creatures can come in, so he can rest assured. He can not only freely switch between the cave and reality, but also bring things inside and outside, and allow plants and animals from outside to enter. Then the usefulness of this day, moon, and cave will be even greater. Additionally, it must be mentioned that since Chen Ling first entered the Sun and Moon Cave, the secret box carrying the Sun and Moon Cave has entered his Naiwan Palace in a way that Chen Ling finds difficult to understand. With a single thought, one can enter and exit the cave. No need to be like the first time, the soul seems to be gradually withdrawn, and people faint. I don't know if it's due to the transformation of the soul by the white mist in the cave, or for some other reason. But as Chen Ling explored, he realized that the sun, moon, and cave had granted him some kind of permission. Just like the legendary Lord Recognition. He just experimented and wanted to take something from the cave. As long as it is something he has touched, with a single thought, it can be taken out of the cave. For example, that hoe is like this. So even if you let the big rooster in, let it run around. Anyway, he can catch it anytime he wants. After working hard in the cave for most of the night, Chen Ling gained a lot and gradually understood how to use the sun-moon cave. When I came out again, I didn't forget to release the big rooster and then went back to the house to lie down. The next morning, Wang Susu opened his eyes and the sky was already bright. The sunlight shone through the window paper and entered the room, creating patches of light on the quilt. Wang Susu rubbed her eyes, feeling a bit tired. After all, I tossed and turned all day yesterday and slept late at night. Although I woke up late enough compared to usual, I still couldn't recover. Next to him, Chen Ling is no longer in bed, so he probably left early. She has long been accustomed to this kind of thing. However, remembering Chen Ling's promise to her last night and her gentle and considerate smile, I couldn't help but let out a sigh in my heart, feeling a bit disappointed. Put on your clothes, get up and get out of bed. Wang Susu, as usual, is preparing to replace the iron stove with new charcoal for breakfast. Only when I got out of bed did I realize that the charcoal blocks in the stove had already been replaced and the fire was burning brightly. At this moment, she suddenly heard a clanging sound of wooden boards outside. Lift the door curtain and walk outside to take a look. In the courtyard, Chen Ling was wearing an apron and cutting vegetables on the chopping board. Next to it is a simple stone stove, inside which firewood is burned, and a steaming pot on top is steaming hot. It smells like congee. But mixed with a wonderful fragrance, it is very appetizing. Wang Susu couldn't help but swallow her saliva, and then her stomach made a gurgling sound. Fortunately, the sound is not too loud. Otherwise, with her temperament, it would be a bit embarrassing. Get up. Wash your face quickly, I'll take the pot now. Chen Ling looked up and smiled at her. I made some peanut, lotus seed and red jujube congee. Would you like to try it later? Wang Susu's face burned with the smile. She watched Chen Ling quickly take out the pot, put 2 bowls of congee on the stone table in the yard, and said to her. Let it sit for a while before drinking, be careful not to scald. In an instant, Wang Susu felt an indescribable feeling in her heart, feeling light and dizzy. This scene seems to have only appeared in a dream. Chapter 7. Breakfast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With a slight Wang Susu went to the stone table and sniffed at 2 bowls of hot congee. The rich fragrance of lotus seeds sucked into her nose, invigorating her spirit. Her fatigue and drowsiness surprisingly subsided a lot. The congee is very thick. There are several red dates floating on it. After stirring it a few times, you can see the lotus seeds and peanuts inside. She didn't find anything wrong, but thought that the congee was too delicious. I couldn't help but swallow my saliva again and quietly glanced at Chen Ling. I thought to myself, I didn't expect him to cook so well. At this moment, Chen Ling was preparing to stir-fry vegetables. Take a few earth eggs, put them into a bowl, add chopped scallions and salt, and then stir with chopsticks. Next, set up a frying pan and add oil to the wok. After the oil is heated, pour the prepared egg mixture into it. The firewood was burning vigorously, and soon a stir-fried egg with scallions was made. Proficient and agile. Wang Susu looked a bit dazed. When Chen Ling arrived in front of him, he realized and his face couldn't help but become even more rosy. Overnight, Chen Ling's changes were too great for her to adapt, so she found a topic to talk about. How to cook in the yard. Isn't there a stove inside? Chen Ling smiled and said, I saw you were asleep, so you didn't fuss around in the house. Anyway, we have a lot of firewood at home, so it's not convenient to cook a meal. When he said this, his hand movements did not stop and his tone was also very ordinary. But when Wang Susu listened, it seemed as if she had been struck in the heart at once. Was it because I was asleep, afraid that cooking would wake me up? Wang Susu gritted her lips tightly, unable to articulate the feeling in her heart. I just feel that the sensitive atrium that has already been sealed seems to have opened a gap at this moment, emitting rays of sunlight. She dispelled a lot of the long-standing haze in her heart. Even she has started to believe some of what Chen Ling said yesterday. I just hope that he won't change back in the future. It's good to keep doing this. Quickly, Chen Ling cooked another dish, fried peanuts. It was the peanuts he brought to the cave last night, and after they grew, he dug out a few. After being brought to the outside world, it has already dehydrated without being dried. Dry ones can be directly used to extract oil. Chen Ling tasted it and it tasted quite good. But the time and conditions are limited. In addition to putting some in congee, only one fried peanut can be made. Susu, why are you so stunned? Help me bring the sugar over quickly. Chen Ling's voice instantly brought Wang Susu back to her senses. Ah. Sugar. Okay. I'll go get it for you. She stood up and hurriedly walked into the room. If you pay attention, you will find that her footsteps are much lighter and faster than before. Take the white sugar and sprinkle it on the peanuts. Chen Ling briefly mixed it and placed it on the table. Ling, the food you cooked is so delicious. Wang Susu shrugged her small nose and gave a soft thumbs up. Then he secretly glanced at Chen Ling and observed his reaction. She was cautious with a hint of probing. After all, Chen Ling never said these common words to her before, only feeling impatient. Chen Ling noticed her cute little appearance and couldn't help but show a soft smile at the corner of her mouth. Is it fragrant? Just fragrant, I'll make it for you every day from now on. Then he sat down on the stone bench opposite her with a smile. Wang Susu was slightly stunned for a moment, as if she didn't expect Chen Ling to answer like this. Her fair face couldn't help but feel hot again. Chen Ling's improvement was what she hoped to see, but Chen Ling's usual tone of speaking was very cheesy. But it made her feel a bit overwhelmed. Upon hearing this, I couldn't help blushing and didn't know how to respond. But at the same time, she felt a little happy in her heart and didn't know what to do. Drink congee. Congee is not hot anymore. Chen Ling saw something unusual about his daughter-in-law, but there was no intention of poking it, so he smiled and said. Wang Susu nodded and lightly responded. Then I took a small sip and my eyes lit up. The little daughter-in-law, who had just blushed, was instantly attracted to the delicious food. After a while, he drank half a bowl of congee. The exhaustion and drowsiness of the whole person were instantly eliminated, and the whole body was warm and comfortable. This lotus seed peanut congee is really delicious. Wang Susu couldn't help but praise and then asked, where did you get such good lotus seeds, Ling? There are lotus seeds, peanuts and red dates in congee, but Wang Susu thinks lotus seeds are the most fragrant. Chen Ling smiled at the words and didn't answer. Instead, she said, don't just drink congee, but try this dish. If there is mantu in the pot, eat it with mantu. Wang Susu also casually asked and was soon successfully diverted from the topic by Chen Ling. I went to taste the dishes made by Chen Ling, and then the chopsticks didn't stop much. Until my stomach couldn't eat anymore, I didn't want to put down my chopsticks. Ah, it's so tough. It's all because Ling, you cook so delicious. Wang Susu rubbed her swollen belly and complained softly. She didn't dare to talk to Chen Ling like this before, but Chen Ling's performance these past few days has had a subtle impact on her. Let her also let go a little bit. Delicious, I'll make something even better for you at noon. Chen Ling is filling the bowl with congee. She smiles up at her. In fact, Chen Ling's cooking skills are just average, and the key to making the rice so fragrant is that the ingredients are all produced by Dongtian. Lotus seeds and peanuts are not included. Even the water used to cook congee and Chen Ling are streams in the cave. Can the cooked rice not be delicious? In addition, besides the stream water, other things produced in the cave also have great benefits for the body. Not to mention Chen Ling, just talk about that big rooster, who stayed in the cave for a little while. I don't know what to eat, but in the early morning, I was full of energy and started to harm a few little hens one by one. Obviously, it has been greatly supplemented. The big roosters have all benefited, and Wang Susu has endured so much hardship and injustice with Chen Ling. Now that he has something good, of course, he cannot forget her. It's just that it's not easy to conceal or make excuses right now. I couldn't bring out more things to share with her. So Chen Ling turned some things that could be taken out into food, and now it seems that the effect is quite good. Wang Susu's haggard face, which had just woken up, was now visibly rosy. The eyes also have more spiritual energy. This made Chen Ling very satisfied in his heart. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. What a pleasure. Chen Ling solved the remaining half-pot of congee and sighed happily. These are all good things, we can't waste them. After eating and drinking enough, Chen Ling stood up and prepared to wash the pot and dishes. I'll do it, Ling. Wang Susu didn't expect Chen Ling to wash dishes again, so she hurriedly stood up. She thinks Chen Ling is already good at cooking. If she were to let Chen Ling do everything, she would always feel uneasy in her heart. She has never been treated like this before. It's like living in a dream. It's okay, you can rest and digest. Chen Ling waved her hand and asked her to sit down. You had a bit too much breakfast today, sit there and don't move. After a while, I took a breath of air, and your stomach started to feel restless. Wang Susu opened her mouth and wanted to say something more. But Chen Ling frowned and pressed him onto the stool, saying, listen. Just washing a bowl, it's not a big deal. Seeing Chen Ling's resolute attitude, Wang Susu dared not say anything more. Just looking at Chen Ling, there was something different from before. After washing the dishes and cooking the pot, Chen Ling saw his daughter-in-law staring at him in a daze with her watery big eyes. At that moment, this silly and cute little appearance was 6 or 7 points similar to the actress Zhou Huimin of Shangjiang. The early spring sunshine shone on her thick hair and pure fair face, making her much more beautiful than Zhou Huimin. Originally, Chen Ling only wanted to take responsibility for Wang Susu's physical condition and make up for past deaths. But at this moment, there is a feeling of accelerated heartbeat. Chapter 8. Wasteland. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Susu's attention had always been focused on Chen Ling. So I immediately noticed Chen Ling looking at her, raised my head slightly, and met Chen Ling's burning gaze. In the past, Wang Susu would have avoided him unnaturally, or lowered her head and dared not look at him. Because of Chen Ling in the past, his eyes were very scary, especially when he lost his temper. But now it's different. Even if Chen Ling stared at her, she was not afraid, but instead felt a little inexplicable joy in her heart. It feels sweet and silky. For a moment, the atmosphere was somewhat warm and ambiguous. However, to the disappointment, the village committee's loudspeaker sounded at this moment, saying that the exchange of arable land should be completed this month and that all households involved should prepare as soon as possible. The loudspeaker shouted 3 times in a row. With each shout, Wang Susu's face became even paler. After shouting, Wang Susu's expression had changed from a mix of shyness and joy to panic. Looking at Chen Ling, I wanted to say something, but I didn't dare to say it. It seems like it has become the little white rabbit that was just a little restless and fearful before. Don't worry about Su, I can handle the matter of farmland. Chen Ling smiled at her with relief and then said. Please stay at home and I'll go to the village committee. What are you going to do? Wang Susu was startled at the words and quickly stood up, nervously looking at him. I'm going to handle the matter of exchanging farmland. Yesterday, Uncle Wu also said that the nature of the land with 2 pillars and a greenhouse has been determined, and our cultivated land cannot be exchanged. Since that's the case, it's better to get things done earlier. Reclaiming farmland is not that simple, so you don't have to procrastinate and bring up other troubles. Chen Ling said. But the land in the Erju family cannot be planted. Wang Susu became anxious upon hearing this and furrowed her brows. After more than 10 years of famine, the grass cannot grow and there is no food to grow at all. How about we think of another way? Chen Lingwen patted her hand and said, Don't worry, Su. I have a solution. Do you think I've been just fooling around in the county town for the past 2 years? I have also heard a lot of news. I have heard that there are many southern regions that develop abandoned wasteland into fertile fields, and I have learned all the models. So using our 10 or so acres of land to exchange for the more than 30 acres of the Erju family is very promising. Besides, planting wasteland is not without its benefits. At least there is no need to pay the annual retention fee, and there is still a subsidy of 30 yuan per acre of land per year. You should also know this, right? What Chen Ling said earlier was purely a joke. What else could Chen Ling do in the county town besides eating, drinking, and having fun? However, what was said later was truthful and not a bit of a lie. So, Wang Susu became very conflicted upon hearing this. Biting his lips, he whispered, but the land of Erju's family used to be the land of a lime factory. There is so much lime buried underground, what kind of land can we plant and dye? Can this kind of land really be developed into good farmland? What Wang Susu said is all facts. The land of Chen Erju's house is where his father runs a lime factory. Later, there was a major earthquake, and the underground of the lime factory collapsed. It is unknown how many tons of lime were buried underground. Because of this, Chen Erju's father owes a lot of debt and cannot take the land anymore. Until now, it has been abandoned for almost 10 years and is now surrounded by a circle of graves. What kind of land is planted and what dies? A few years ago, before the Chen Wangzhuang brigade was disbanded, some saplings were planted, but now more than half of them have died. Even though they are alive, they have been that tall for so many years and have hardly grown much. All the leaves were withered and yellow, half dead and lifeless. This is all done by lime burning underground. Wang Susu knew all of this, so when she heard about exchanging farmland with the Erju family, she never felt at ease. If it were Chen Ling from the past, he would definitely have to stare. But now Chen Ling has the sun, moon, and cave in his hand. Whether it is saline alkali land or lime land, it is not a problem. The various magical aspects of the cave. Inserting a chopstick into the ground can make it sprout. So Chen Lingzhen didn't panic and still comforted Wang Susu with a smile, saying, It's okay, I have a way to solve it. You have to trust me, Susu. Alright, you stay at home, I'll go back as soon as I go. After finishing speaking, he patted Wang Susu's hand again and walked out. Seeing Chen Ling's resolute and confident appearance, Wang Susu opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. I just looked at Chen Ling's back and let out a long sigh. After Chen Ling walked out of the house, he rushed straight to the village committee. However, on the road, he encountered many people standing on the street talking. As he walked over from the side, there were also people whispering and pointing at him. After listening carefully, Chen Ling realized that Wang Susu had deceived him yesterday. Except for exchanging farmland with Chen Erju, everyone else's land was contracted with money. That is to say, no one is willing to exchange land with Chen Erju, after all, who in the village doesn't know the situation of that land. Unable to grow food, they are not foolish. Only Chen Ling, a careless and lazy person, foolishly pressed his fingerprints for the 200 yuan subsidy per acre of land for Chen Erju. Wang Susu also kept this matter a secret from him. Yesterday, he just said that there were a few companies in the village that had changed, and if there were those who were unwilling to change, they would pay to take care of Chen Erju. I want to use this method to persuade Chen Ling and then find a way to negotiate with Chen Erju to convert it into contracted land. Unexpectedly, Chen Erju found someone in the county, and the township quickly stamped and approved the approval for building a greenhouse, and the exchange land became completely Chen Erju's. Oh, it's really difficult to be a vegetarian. Chen Ling sighed with self-reflection. He understands very well that Wang Susu lied to him yesterday and there was nothing he could do. If it were for Chen Ling's previous temper, if Wang Susu had told him the truth. That bastard might think that Wang Susu is scolding him. If others don't change, you can change. Are you stupid? As soon as the dog's temper flared up, not to mention talking to Chen Erju about changing the land and contracting, I'm afraid we'll have to start beating Wang Susu first. The land of Erju's family is a piece of abandoned land. It has been abandoned for more than 10 years, and the grass is not growing well. What can we plant? The wealthy and lazy man was just thinking about eating, drinking, and having fun. He was greedy for the 200 yuan per acre of land that the two pillars were giving him. He didn't even think about it. The two pillars were giving someone else's land, 100 yuan per acre every year, which was 30 or 40 yuan more than other villages. Both of these are good, even a fool knows. Later on, the wealthy also realized that their intestines were regretful. I heard from the person at the east end of the village yesterday that Fugue heard from the village chief that he couldn't change the land back, so he fainted in the yard and only woke up after dark. I also heard my elderly lady talk about this matter. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net complains about this rascal's greed, and now it's too late to regret it. It's a pity that such a good wife has suffered a lot from following him. Along the way, there was really anything to say. I finally arrived at the village committee, but Wang Laishun is not here yet. They said they led the people from the township family planning office to conduct some investigation. Chen Ling had no choice but to find a chair and sit down and wait. After waiting for about 20 minutes, Wang Laishun returned, followed by a tall and beautiful little woman with a plump figure. I am around 30 years old, with a good temperament and fashionable attire. Of course, this fashion is relative to this era. Chen Ling glanced and thought to himself that this should be the person from the township family planning office. Oh, wealth and prosperity, you're here. Wang Laishun saw Chen Ling sitting at the door and greeted him with a smile. Then he pointed to the little woman behind him and said, "Here, let me introduce you. This is Qin Shumei, Director Qin of the Township Family Planning Office. Director Qin has been temporarily staying at Dongmei's house for the past few days. You are facing the door, looking down but not looking up. It's inevitable to meet and walk these days." Wang Laishun said with a smile. What? Stay at Dongmei's house across the street. Chen Ling suddenly realized that Director Qin was an acquaintance. On the first day when he had just crossed over, he didn't know where he was, so he got up from under the covers wearing a big pair of shorts and walked out the door to look around. Coincidentally, Qin Shumei, who was carrying a bucket out to pour out wastewater, caught her and thought she was playing hooliganism. She poured a bucket of cold water on her head. I didn't expect to meet you here, and the other person actually has such a level of identity. The director of the Township Family Planning Office is amazing. Chapter 9. Misfortune. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While Chen Ling recognized Qin Chumei also recognized him. However, since Wang Laishan introduced them, it's not good for them not to speak. So Chen Ling politely greeted him. "Hello, Director Qin." "Hello." Qin Chumei replied calmly and then stopped speaking. This attitude was not due to encountering Chen Ling walking around naked outside. Mainly because of the information learned from other villagers in Chenwangswang. Make her feel no favor towards this guy at all. He is lazy and likes to eat and beat his wife, so he doesn't look like a man at all. Working in the family planning office for a long time, Qin Chumei has met many families and dislikes this kind of man the most. "Director Qin, stop standing and talking here, come and sit inside." Wang Laishan spoke out. Then the two followed Wang Laishan into the village committee office. After sitting down, Wang Laishan poured 2 cups of hot water and brought them to the two of them. Of course, it was mainly poured for Qin Chumei, and Chen Ling was just carrying it along. "Fugue, why are you here so early? What's up?" Wang Laishan asked. "I thought to myself that this kid fainted after listening to the news yesterday that the farmland couldn't be exchanged. He must have regretted it. He came to the village committee so early today, so don't come here to cause trouble. After all, if the second pillar contracts someone else's land, a contract fee of 100 yuan per acre per year will be given. The exchange of 200 yuan per acre of arable land as a subsidy to him instantly didn't seem so much. A hammer's worth of buying and selling, there's no such thing as a steady stream of money. Moreover, this fine water is not actually that fine. As long as you're not really foolish, you can definitely distinguish between good and bad. So it's normal for this lazy boy to have such a big reaction when he heard the news that the farmland cannot be exchanged back. Uncle Wu, let me take a look at the exchange of farmland. Can we do it now?" As soon as Chen Ling spoke these words, Wang Laishuan's eyes suddenly flashed with a look that did not meet my expectations. However, on the surface, he looked very embarrassed and said with a bitter black face, "Rich and noble, it's not that Uncle Wu doesn't help you, it's just this matter. The village has stamped it. Once the village stamps, it becomes difficult for him to handle this matter, and there is also the county watching over it. Even if you dismantle Uncle Wu's old bone, you won't be able to speak up for you." After speaking, Chen Ling, with a worried expression on his face, let out a long sigh. "It looks like this is too difficult to handle at all. Uncle Wu, what did you say? Did you misunderstand something?" Chen Ling said inexplicably. But he chuckled inwardly, the old man had quite a lot of children's play. Didn't the loudspeaker just shout out, saying that families involved in exchanging farmland should complete it as soon as possible this month? Well, I'll come over and see if I can do it as soon as possible. It's also a hassle-free time to do it earlier, isn't it? What? What are you talking about? Wang Laishuan's eyes widened as he listened. I didn't hear anything wrong. Did you agree to exchange farmland? Do you still want to do it now? Yeah. What do I disagree with? Didn't I press my fingerprint a long time ago? Uncle Wu, as you said, the village has already been stamped, how can I exchange it for it? Chen Lingli's natural way. Wang Laishan was taken aback for a moment. He looked at Chen Ling with a strange expression in his eyes. This kid must have gone crazy after fainting yesterday. Qin Chumei next to her was the same, both of them looking at Chen Ling as if they were looking at a fool. You don't regret it? Wang Laishan blinked and asked in an uncertain tone. Don't regret it. As a man, you should dare to take action. Since you agreed to exchange farmland with the Erzhu family, how can you regret it? Chen Ling said extremely seriously. The land of Erzhu's family is not only large, but also far from the village, almost in the mountains, and the location is very hidden. Using the sun, moon, and cave to mix something can easily cover it up, hitting Chen Ling's chest. But Wang Laishan didn't take it seriously when he heard it. Just you little rascal, are you still a man like a man? He's just a big idiot, so foolish that he's smoking. With a frown, he asked, do you know about this matter? I know, I convinced her before I came, she doesn't object. Chen Ling nodded and said. He knows that his daughter-in-law is still very worried, but in a while, she will see results. Wang Laishun didn't believe this and wanted to confirm with Wang Susu, but the village had already stamped the seal on this matter. Wang Susu was unwilling and had no choice. It's better to do less than to do more. He said, if you're sure, you can't go back on your word. Chen Ling nodded and said, I won't back out. Since it can be done, Uncle Wu, please hurry up and do it. After finishing it, I plan to plow the land in the next 2 days. Good guy, this is for real. Upon hearing this, Wang Laishun glanced at Chen Ling in surprise. Okay, I'll handle it for you now. Come to this house, please register first. But in my heart, I think this kid hasn't even rained on the land a few times and is still plowing. The land of the Erzhu family is not something that can be solved with just a few plows. I don't know who fooled this kid. Never mind, no one will persuade him, so let him do as he pleases. 20 minutes later, after completing the task of exchanging farmland and implementing it clearly, Chen Ling walked out of the village committee. As soon as I left the door, I saw Qin Shumei and the female director of Chen Wangzhuang talking outside the door. There are still a few people nearby holding paint buckets and brushes, which should be replaced with new family planning slogans. Chen Ling didn't look much and walked past them before heading towards the outside of the village. I plan to take a look at the wasteland of the Erzhu family. This land was actually developed by Chen Erzhu's father during the years around 1980 when the country encouraged land reclamation. However, due to the terrain of Chen Wangzhuang, it is difficult to open up land, and there are actually not many people who actually go to open up land. No one competes, no one grabs. As long as there is courage to open up wasteland, there will be a lot of wasteland in the end. It is normal for a family to open up 30.50 acres of land. Both father and son are quite capable of tinkering around. Chen Ling found it quite interesting. In the past, it was Laozi who opened up the land, but ended up not farming well and running a lime factory. Now my son contracts the land at a premium to build a greenhouse. However, tinkering is something that can be tinkered with, and it also has a bit of courage. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net but luck is not very good. One is hit by a major earthquake, and the other is about to hit a flood. This guy, God is fighting against these two guys. While feeling amused in my heart, I also feel that these two gentlemen deserve it. None of them are good things. Let's talk about the exchange of farmland this time. Although Chen Ling had a flawed mind before, he couldn't help but be instigated and deceived by Chen Erzhu. Otherwise, for no reason, why invite him to the dance hall? It is clearly ill-intentioned. Seeing that Chen Ling's house is adjacent to the water pump room and also close to the southern river bend, irrigation is very convenient, I wanted to hold on to him. Currently, Chen Ling doesn't want to pursue it. After all, there are still 3 or 4 months left, and the flood is about to come. He will have to bear it then. There's no need to argue with such people anymore. With the sun, moon, and sky in hand, Chen Ling still has more important things to do. Walk outside the village. Chen Ling looked around and saw a large wheat field, with deep blue mountains in the distance. A few children are running around in the wheat field, flying kites. The wasteland that Chen Ling is going to is located at the foot of the northwest mountain, separated by several steep slopes and a considerable distance. It's only around 9 a.m. now, it's still early, and Chen Ling doesn't have to rush over. Just walk slowly and enjoy the pastoral scenery that was already difficult to see in my past life. However, after crossing 2 steep slopes, Chen Ling heard a scream of surprise. There's a dead person in the pit. Following the sound, Chen Ling saw that it was the group of children flying kites shouting. One by one, their small faces turned pale, shouting and running towards the roadside, so scared that they didn't even want a kite. Chapter 10. Dog Puppies. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Quickly, these children noticed Chen Ling walking on the road and immediately ran towards him. Running behind, a sharp-eyed child recognized Chen Ling. It's Uncle Fugue. Uncle Fugue, help me. There's a dead person in the pit. Chen Ling had already walked towards them at this moment. Where are their dead people? Where are they? With adults around, children are no longer so afraid. After hearing Chen Ling's question, the child who initially recognized Chen Ling pointed to a dilapidated temple in the distance and said. Right there, in the tree pit behind the Tutti temple. I also saw it. My clothes are all rotten, with hair exposed outside and bones. It's always scary. Yes, I saw my clothes moving. No wonder my mother doesn't let me go to the Tutti temple to play. She says it's the darkest place at night. As soon as the sun sets, the temple gate turns into a monster's mouth. Ah, 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 group of children couldn't even catch their breath when they started shouting with their mouths full. She patted her chest with lingering fear as she spoke, her small face filled with fear. However, the more Chen Ling listened, the more he became uneasy, feeling a bit skeptical. He asked carefully again and found that these children had not really seen clearly. Just standing by and looking at it, with bones, messy hair, and tattered clothes, I thought it was a dead person and ran away in fear. I didn't approach to look. Chen Ling was speechless after listening. He was quite nervous just now, thinking that someone really died there. In a short period of time, he even imagined a folk murder scene from the 1990s. Now that I have heard what these children said, it is almost certain that these children have misread and are just trying to scare themselves. Lionir, why are you running so far? Isn't there anything you can play with in the east of the village? If you have to run to the west of the village, you're not afraid that someone will kidnap you? Chen Ling said to the child who first recognized him. This kid's house is not far from Chen Ling's house. There are 5 older sisters on top of him. Thinking he was still a girl, he took the nickname Lionir early on. As a result, he was born as a son and did not change. To the east is the reservoir, and I won't be allowed to go. Lionir sniffed and chuckled at Chen Ling. Alright, you guys go home quickly. If you don't have adults following you in the future, don't run so far to play. Chen Ling waved his hand and said. But Uncle Fugue, there are really dead people behind the Earth Temple. A little girl with a pale face whispered, still looking very scared. What's the saying that, the dead never die? Don't talk nonsense, didn't you just have a big worship at the Tutti temple in the first day of junior high school? It's only been a few days now. If there are dead people, can adults not see them? Hurry up and go back. Chen Ling talked a lot and finally persuaded a few children back. However, after a few children walked away, Chen Ling decided to go to the Tutti temple to take a look. Although it is known that 80% of the children were mistaken, it is still better to take a look for safety reasons. The Tutti temple is not big and has not been repaired for several years. Just clean it every time during the Chinese New Year, hang fresh red cloth, and repaint the couplets. Located alone on a small path in the field, behind it is a large pit 2 meters deep, about 3 or 4 acres in size, filled with trees over 10 years old. In summer, the tree canopy covers the sky and sun, making it a great place to cool off. But at night, it looked dark and made people feel uneasy. So many adults make up stories about monsters behind the earth temples to scare their children and prevent them from running around outside the village. Because in this era, many children are trafficked and once abducted, it is difficult to find them back. At this moment, Chen Ling came to the Tudi temple and turned around. The temple door is locked, but the gap between the doors is large, allowing for a clear view of the things inside the temple. There is no one in the surrounding fields. Only a few children's kites, including Liunier, fell not far away and tangled together in a scattered manner. Chen Ling walked over and unraveled the kite string, wrapped it up, and put it in the cave, intending to return it to the children after returning. Then he walked towards the back of the Tudi temple. Go down into the pit, carefully search for it, and soon find what Liunier and the others said between the two adjacent trees. Rotten clothes, messy hair, and bones. When Chen Ling walked over, there was something gently wriggling under the tattered clothes. If you listen carefully, you can still hear waves of humming sounds, which are subtle and you can't even hear them if you don't walk up to them. Chen Ling squatted down and gently peeled off his clothes, only to see the body of a dog. The black dog has frozen stiff. But his belly still wriggled from time to time, revealing two small tails and occasionally emitting a faint whimper. Chen Ling suddenly knew what was going on. Carefully removing the body of the black dog, I saw two puppies, one black and one yellow, trembling with their bodies and eyes still open. It was obvious that they had just been born. After Chen Ling moved the body of the black dog away, the two little ones groaned and crawled around, instinctively looking for milk to drink. Unfortunately, their mother has already passed away, and it is unknown whether it is due to difficult childbirth or other reasons. It is impossible for them to drink breast milk. These two little guys are probably only 2 or 3 days old, and even in the cold weather, they have diarrhea. I don't know if they can survive. Chen Ling touched the two little puppies, feeling uncertain in his heart. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. After all, I haven't eaten anything since I was born, and there are still a few pieces of loose feces on my rotten clothes, which are obviously too loose. Experienced people know that such puppies cannot be kept alive. But it's definitely not good to leave it alone. I can only hope that the Sun Moon Cave is awesome enough. With a thought, Chen Ling grabbed two puppies and put them into the cave. Within the cave, Chen Ling walked to the stream with two puppies in his arms and fed them little by little with his hands touching the stream water. He fed back and forth several times, but the effect did not disappoint him. Just now, the two little ones who were extremely weak were able to open their eyes. Rubbing affectionately in Chen Ling's arms with his small head, as if he wanted to get some water to drink. Good guy, this is the stream water. Do you think this is drinking milk? Chen Ling looked at him arching back and forth in his arms, like two puppies looking for milk to drink, feeling a bit amused. They were immediately placed on the ground and fed several times with the stream water. In no time, the two little ones became lively and could run with their legs wide open. Run while making a crisp and powerful cry. Now there's no need to worry about whether they can survive anymore. Chen Ling smiled and carried the two puppies back to the thatched cottage. Then he picked up his hoe and walked out of the cave. Entering the outside world, Chen Ling disposed of the body of the black dog, dug a pit nearby with a hoe, and buried it. The temperature is still low now, and the time for the black dog to die is also short. There is not much odor, but it is not good to leave it here and let it go. Simply bury the pit, fill the soil, retrieve the hoe from the cave, and Chen Ling continues to walk towards the wasteland at the foot of the mountain.